God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision.
Hello and welcome back, young people. My name is Bruce and I am very excited to bring you all lesson number 10 in our fall quarter, in our very first lesson in unit 3, which is obedience in society. But the title of today's lesson is obedience in justice, and it comes to us from Exodus chapter 23, verses 1 through 9. The time of writing is 1445 BC. The place is Mount Sinai. The golden text, young people, is keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked. And that comes to us from Exodus chapter 23, verse 7. And in our lesson today, young people, we're going to talk about, it's in the title, obedience and justice. And we're going to briefly talk about not following the crowd. We're going to talk about not lying on people. We're going to talk about how God structured it, or how God laid it out so that, again, justice could be served. And again, in a society where there is no justice, where people can't count on, going to court and having a matter resolved fairly, well, you're in that situation, you're going to see anarchy reign, because again, when people are mistreated, when people, again, have their rights trampled on, they only take that for so long. And again, as we look to today, again, we're going to really talk about, not going along with the crowd. Sometimes it's easy to just to follow along with what everyone else is doing. It's easy to go with the crowd. It's hard to stand on an island by yourself, or it's hard to say, yeah, well, I understand what society says, but, I believe in something different. And so, again, we're going to see in this lesson those points that I laid out, and prayerfully, I make it plain. And so you can use the practical points in this lesson in your daily lives. And again, we want to make sure that we don't, take part in, assassinating someone's character by lying on them, or that when we see someone's, and we're going to get into our lesson, but you know how it is, young people, and anybody else watching this video. When you don't like somebody, you don't want to do anything good for them. You don't want to do anything nice for them. And God has laid out, that's not how he wants us to act. That's not how he wants us to conduct ourselves. Again, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. If the Lord finds that someone has harmed you, or if someone has done you wrong, and if it's his will, then he'll take care of that. And so, without further ado, I'm very excited to bring this lesson to you all. I hope that you all are doing well. And the purpose of our lesson today, young people, is to always act justly toward people. You want to show respect for people, because we are created in God's image. Again, you want to, again, especially as a Christian, right? There's just certain ways that you should conduct yourself. Again, even in situations where you may not particularly like the individual, or you may not like the lifestyle that the particular individual lives, but again, you still treat them with respect. You show respect, and you show love and kindness, because again, that's what we've been called to do. In order for the people of Israel to officially become a nation, they needed a constitution. To that end, the Lord gave Israel the Mosaic Law, which served as their constitution. It provided them with instruction on how God expected them to live as his people. The law had three major divisions: the Ten Commandments, the ceremonial laws, and the civil laws. Legal justice is essential to the moral and political stability of any society, as I was saying earlier. The absence of legal justice denotes either a state of anarchy or an existence of a government in which people are oppressed and deprived of natural human rights. It is one thing to have good laws, but yet it's another to administer them with equal justice for all. While Israel had laws that provided justice for all, the people were responsible to the Lord for seeing that justice was properly administered. The Lord expected them to always conduct their affairs with consideration for the rights of all people. And as I was going through that introduction, young people, one thing that I didn't bring out is, as we think about our current judicial system, and we kind of see how things sometimes play out based on, whether or not you have means or not. Well, we're going to see in this lesson that it didn't matter if you were poor or if you were rich. As a judge, you're not supposed to look at someone who is poor and destitute and show favoritism when it's not warranted. On the other side, you're not supposed to punish, or you're not supposed to hold it against a wealthy person because they have wealth and use that as judgment against them or for them, because again, they have means. So again, as we think about our current system and we've seen, a lot of, let's just call it what it is, unfairness. Unfortunately, our current legal system is way off from what God prescribed here in our lesson. And so the moral imperatives in these laws transcend the Mosaic law and are relevant in any age, especially for God's people. The laws in Exodus 23, 1 through 9 require a caring attitude toward the needy in society who were vulnerable to injustice. These would be the widows, the orphans, the helpless, and the foreigner. The Lord also demanded that the legal system be totally impartial in rendering decisions. And again, you can't be partial if you've taken a bribe or if you are, holding someone's status in a positive or negative light. And so as we get into our verses, we start with verses 1 through 3, and it is under the title of Justice and Bearing False Testimony. Again, that comes from Exodus 23, verses 1 through 3. And as we look at verse 1, young people, thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. So right off the bat, young people, don't follow the crowd. Don't follow the crowd in a thing where they're going because they want you to be a liar and claim something about someone that didn't happen, and you see that even outside of the legal system, right? Some of you all, have been put in situations where, people have said outright lies about you and have gotten other people to join in, with the lie. And again, you've had to defend yourself, or maybe at some point in your life, maybe you were that one that was a ringleader and stirring up people to, say all manner of things. Again, prayerfully, God has delivered you from that. But I think all of us have experiences with this on either side. But again, God is saying, thou shalt not raise a false report. Don't even go with them. If those people want to go and lie, and if you are under oath and you are, you've committed perjury, again, it's never a good scenario or never a good situation to make up falsities about someone because you don't like them, or because you don't have the fortitude to tell the group, no, I'm not going along with y'all on that particular thing. Verse 2, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. And again, this is that group think, right? Where you're just, because again, you don't have the strength to say, I'm going to go the other way, or I'm not going to follow the crowd because this is evil. This is wrong. We should not be doing this. And God has said repeatedly, again, as I said earlier, vengeance is mine. So when you do something like this, well, you are taking a chance on God coming to their defense. And again, it's an awful thing to be in the hands of a living God. So again, running behind the crowd to commit evil or to lie on someone or to decline someone their proper judgment because, again, of the crowd. Again, you see it right here in verse 2. God is not going, he's going to judge you for that. Verse 3, neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. And again, as I said earlier, you know, you don't treat them, you don't give them favor that is undeserved because of their status. And you don't give them an unjust judgment because, again, they don't have any means to come at you. You know what I mean? And so, again, you are, in this particular one, you are a righteous judge. Again, it's no different than our God in heaven. He is a righteous judge. So when someone brings a case before you, you don't look at the individual in front of you. You look at the facts of the case, and then you render the best judgment. And so as we go back to justice and bearing false testimony, God's people were forbidden to engage in wrongful deeds against each other. Whether a legal matter was involved or not, an Israelite was never to bear false witness against a countryman. God's people are always expected to act with integrity. You know, this is something that unfortunately, especially in the church, we've got to deal with this, right? You know, there are times where, again, people will just flat out lie on you. And again, it doesn't have to be on your job or in school, within your friends or your family. It could be right in the church. And again, God doesn't like that. And so again, as Christians, again, we've been called to be set apart. We've been called to be different from the world. These are the things that the world does. These are not the things that should describe us as Christians. In a legal case, it is imperative that an Israelite could assure the court that his testimony was truthful. Listen, if you brought a case against your fellow countrymen, you needed you needed two or more witnesses. And if you had one witness, you may as well not even bring that thing to court. Because again, without two or more witnesses, this is he said, she said. Or this is your word against their word. You know, we're not just going to take you because of you. And it didn't matter what your status was. If you've only got or no witnesses or one witness, well, hey, listen, you got to go back and find some other people that can corroborate what you just said. And so he had to assure the court that his testimony was truthful. If otherwise, justice could be perverted against the innocent. Again, if they just took the word of one individual, or if they just took the word of, let's just say, a wealthy individual, because again, their status in the community, well, someone who had not done a thing could find themselves being unjustly punished, or in some cases brought to death. You know, this is for another class, but I'll give it to you right now, young people. But there was a time in Israel's history where Ahab, the king, wanted a vineyard. And, you know, long story long, he went to the man. The man told him, no, he can't have it. That's his family's, that's his inheritance. He couldn't sell that, right? King got mad, ran off, started crying like a girl. His wife, Jezebel, decided to take matters into her own hands. She, again, sent a letter down to where he was and had them have a feast and set him in a position of, in a prized position, and then had him surrounded by two scoundrels who basically said in the middle of the thing that this guy, he has blasphemed the king and God. And they took the word of these two guys, then they took him out and they stoned him, killed him. Word got back to her. She told the king, oh, look, he's dead. Go take your vineyard. And again, long story long, God, he judged him for that. And so again, but it's never going to work out for anyone to lie or bring false witness against someone, and then for that person to end up suffering an unjust fate because of your lie. And so as we go back, as we continue, God also forbade the Israelites to participate in any evil plot to indict the innocent. They were never to conspire with a wicked person seeking an unjust verdict against an innocent man. Swearing as a witness against someone who one knew to be guiltless was maliciousness in God's sight. The word unrighteous in verse 1 means malicious. False testimony against an innocent man is an act of perjury if given under oath. The purpose for the wicked scheme might be to steal from the accused or even to have him executed for some selfish and wicked gain. As I just told you in that story about King Ahab and the man named Naboth and his vineyard, it is hypocrisy at its worst when the wicked supposedly seek justice, but in reality, they seek their own unjust ends at the expense of the innocent. This is selfish disrespect for the rights of others. The admonition is an expression of the ninth commandment, which clearly forbids bearing false witness. And that is a part of the 10 commandments. And that comes to us from Exodus 20, verse 16. God also prohibited the Israelites from following a crowd. Again, as I've been saying throughout this lesson, listen, young people, you are a leader. Right? You don't have to follow the crowd. And even if there's no one following you, go take your own path. Be your own person. Be your own man. Be your own girl. Be your own person. Right? So God also prohibited the Israelites from following a crowd whose intent was an evil act of injustice. They were not to be influenced by a crowd to bear false witness to deprive the innocent of justice. The pressure of public opinion to inflict injustice was to be rejected. And let me back up a little bit, young people. Again, while everyone, you should be a leader. You should exude that. Now, again, there are situations where, you can go along with the crowd. Again, as long as the crowd is not trying to do something that compromises your witness or compromises your character or compromises your morals. Again, if any of those three things are being compromised, then I would strongly advise you to move away from that particular crowd. It is human behavior to want to be accepted. And again, I don't care who you are. We can talk about, oh, he's a loner, this, that, and all that. She's a loner. At the end of the day, most people would rather be accepted by their peers and at least a part of that in crowd, if you will, than being outcasts or, loners. It is human behavior to want to be accepted by the multitude and to be part of a larger movement in society. It takes courage, young people, and I'm going to say it again. It takes courage to obey God and go against the grain of public opinion. Again, there's a myriad of different topics floating around in our world or in our country today. Very divisive topics, right? And it is easy sometimes to kind of, I want to be tolerant, right? I was sitting in class over the weekend and the teacher said, the word you be careful what you tolerate, right? Because again, you start tolerating different things and before you know it, well, you set aside what you know to be the standard. Again, we can say everything in love, but the standard is the standard. And so Justice was not to be rendered with partiality in the case of a poor person. The word countenance means to show favoritism. Special considerations were not to be shown to a person due to economic status. A poor man was to bear his own guilt. Again, not every poor person is as it was in our expositor. It's not every poor person isn't a good person. Every rich person isn't a bad person. Again, it ebbs and flows. So again, you can't just look at a person and say, oh man, this person has nothing and they're poor, and it means absolutely nothing. If you stole, you stole. Again, and I'll give you an example, situation where, you've got a man who has a family he wants to provide for, but he doesn't have, he doesn't have a job, doesn't have, ways to make money. And so he steals. Well, again, to feed his family. Now, we all understand, at least I can understand as a man, the pull to want to take care of your family. But at the end of the day, the law is the law. So if you get caught, while it's unfortunate, and you did what you had to do for your family, you're still going to face punishment for it. Now, we can talk about the fact that, a man or woman has to resort, to stealing to feed their family when there's churches on every corner. But that's a discussion for another day. Nonetheless, again, if you know what's right and what's wrong and you do what's wrong, unfortunately, there can be consequences behind it. And so, again, special considerations were not to be shown to the person due to economic status. A poor man was to bear his own guilt. The principle of justice was to be applied equitably to both rich and poor. And really what that does is that tells everybody that, okay, it doesn't matter what your status is. You can bring a case to the court and not worry about, oh, okay, well, I have this issue against this rich man and I don't have any status or clout in the community, and so my request is going to be denied, or the judgment is not going to be in my favor. Again, if everyone is being treated equally regardless of status, again, society can march on. The wealthy and powerful were to be neither favored for their wealth nor condemned for it. The prohibition against bearing false witness applies to all human interactions. Again, doesn't matter if it's in the courtroom or not. If you're in your classroom with your classmates, if you are on your job with your coworkers, if you're just out and about, again, doesn't matter. There's never there's never going to be a situation where God is going to be like, yeah, okay, you're justified in that. Ultimately, young people, listen, the truth, it may hurt, but it will set you free. And so bearing false witness applies to all human interactions, not just the courtroom. God is a God of truth. Again, God is a God of truth. Deuteronomy 32, verse 4, who expects his people always to speak the truth. And again, that's Psalms 15, verses 1 through 2. Again, there are ways that you can say it. You don't have to be 100% real with someone. You can smooth it out, if you will. Right. Again, as I've said, you can say anything, right, to a person as long as you choose your words carefully, But if you don't choose your words carefully, well, then you could be met with a rebuke, or you could be met with a wall put up or defense or whatever. But again, if you apply words of wisdom, if you choose your words carefully, you may get a better response. And so as we look at justice and enemies, which covers verses 4 and 5, and as we look at verse 4, if thine meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. And no, young people, I did not just curse. An ass is a donkey. And so again, going back to when you have an issue with somebody, right? It's real easy to be like, I ain't doing nothing for him. Period. I don't care what it is. I don't care if I saw someone taking their most prized possession. I don't care if I saw their dog running down the street. I don't care if whatever it is. I'm not going to. No. And so God is saying to the Israelites, hey, listen, if you see the animal of the person that you're having an issue with going astray, basically roaming around lost, right? It is your duty. It is your duty to get that animal and bring that animal back to his owner. Because listen, it's going to do several things, right? First of all, it's going to let the person who you have an issue with know that, this man, this is a good man, one. Because this man brought back my property. This man could have either stolen my property or he could have just let it go on and someone else could have got it, or it could have been eaten, or, whatever may have you. And when you show kindness to somebody that you have issue with, you're just heaping coals on top of them, right? Again, that's scripture. Because again, regardless of what they do to you, and we saw it with Jesus when he said, listen, if someone slaps your cheek, turn the other cheek. And again, that's a story for another day. But again, you're not going to respond in a way that the world wants you to respond. You know, the world says, oh, this person, did something to me. Forget them. Done with them. I don't care about them. Well, if you're a Christian, you should care about them. If you're a Christian, you should take every step possible to make amends. Like, hey, listen, I want to ask your forgiveness for my part in whatever the situation is. Sometimes, and you've heard it said a lot, somebody's got to be the bigger person, right? Someone has to be the one that says, okay, listen, we can't keep doing this. We can't keep being, enemies with each other. Hey, listen, I apologize. If I offended you, my brother, my sister, I apologize. Listen, that goes a long way. And please be genuine, because if you're not going to be genuine, you might as well keep it to yourself. But a genuine apology, or genuine, hey, listen, brother, I don't know, how we got here, but listen, I'm sorry. Again, that goes a long way anyway. So as we look at verse 5, if thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help him. So God is doubling down. He's like, listen, not only if you see your enemy's, property, animal, going astray, if you see him overburdened, right? Because again, a lot of times, these animals would be loaded down, and sometimes they wouldn't always have the best nutrition, especially, if you're dealing with someone who doesn't have means, right? Or a person that is poor. This is their only, service animal, if you will. They're going to put a lot on that animal. If you run across that animal, it is your duty as an Israelite under God's law. Hey, let me lighten this animal's load. Again, it's going to show, one, you care about the animal, because you're going to take away some of that load, and you care about the person who the animal belongs to, because again, you're going to make sure that nothing happens to the animal. And again, this is a way to reconcile. This is a way to, hey man, I don't even know what we were mad about, And again, even in a situation like I described earlier, even if none of those things are happening, as you are being kind to someone who you're at odds with, you're just heaping coals on top of them. Heaping coals. Because again, you're not acting the way the world tells you to act. You're not handling them the way that again, and even back then, the rule was an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. I get back, I do to you what you did to me. Right? And again, God, he's, especially for us Christians, he's called us to not be that way. And so again, going back to justice and enemies, personal enmity, was to be set aside when another person's private property was involved. The word enemy refers to a person who was in a legal dispute against another. The Lord's justice demanded that he be treated like any other neighbor. Again, you can not like them all you want, but you still needed to treat them with a level of respect. In the case of a wandering animal belonging to him, it was to be returned to its owner. An overburdened, young people, an overburdened beast belonging to an enemy was to be relieved of its load. The court, and this is the truly wonderful thing, the court was unlikely to prosecute someone for failing to return a stray animal to its master or to relieve an overtaxed beast. Nevertheless, and again, remember, even if no one else sees what you're doing, there's always one that is ever present, right? Ever present, sees everything. Nevertheless, God demanded that this be done. This moral imperative transcends the Mosaic law. And again, it's still in effect today. Again, just because we don't live in that agricultural society, which we mentioned last in a few other videos, doesn't mean that, again, there are not situations where, you have an opportunity where you can either stick it to them, right? or you can do the right thing. And ultimately, you know, you're going to make the choice, and preferably you choose the right thing, which is to, you know, not stick it to them. But again, if you decide to stick it to them, if you decide to turn a blind eye, because that's what these two verses talked about. If you basically, oh, I don't see that. You know, if you know, you see your neighbor who you don't like, you see their car door wide open, right? You could go up and either ring the doorbell and tell them the door is open, or you can close it, but you're like, I ain't see it, go into your house. And then their car stays open, door stays open for any limited period of time, kills their battery, or, you know, someone hops in, takes it, whatever. But you could have deaded that. But you decided, no, I don't see it. You know, I'm Ray Charles in this moment. I don't even see nothing. Listen, again, God, you can say that to yourself. You can say to your neighbor, oh my God, they did what? They didn't even know. Wow, that's crazy. And you've heard it. You've all heard it. Boy, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy. When in a lot of cases, they had an opportunity where they could have, you know, as I said, simply close the door or ring your doorbell and say, hey, do you know your light's on, or you know your door's open, your trunk is open, or whatever may have you. But you decided to turn a blind eye. Again, you're running afoul of God in that situation. And so as it is seen in the words of Christ, he taught us that we are to love our enemies, Matthew 5:44, even though they curse, hate, despitefully use, or even persecute us, we are to do good to them in return. Again, let them do what they want to do. You serve a mighty God. And again, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So again, whatever they're trying to do to you, again, God can turn it around for your good. Again, God can make your enemies your footstool. So don't worry about that. Let them do what they're going to do. As my wife always tells me, let them do what they're going to do. You know the God you serve. Now, again, sometimes we're human. We're wrapped in flesh, you know, and sometimes the flesh gets the best of us. Again, you know, these lessons are, you know, again, to help us look inwardly to, man, have I turned a blind eye? You know, have I gone, you know, and lied on somebody for the purpose of, you know, getting them. And on the job, it happens a lot, right? You know, with the lying on people, because again, you can have a situation where a group of people don't like one individual. I've seen it on my job. If they don't like you, oh, they come at you hard until you either quit or they fire you. And it is sad, but it happens. And again, as Christians, man, that should not be us. That shouldn't be us in that crowd that's like whispering and gossiping and coming up with all manner of things to run back to the supervisor or to the boss or president to try to get this person out of here because you don't like them. Because anyway. So again, as we're moving into justice, the poor and the innocent, which covers Exodus 23:6-8. And as we look at verse 6, thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. And again, it's going back to you treat them the way, if again, just because you're poor doesn't mean you're innocent. Just because you're wealthy doesn't mean you're innocent. So you judge every case equitably. You judge every case based on what's in front of you. You judge the case based on the witnesses that are in front of you and on nothing else. Verse 7, keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked. Again, we're reiterating the fact that, hey, listen, stay away from that mess. Stay away from lying on people. Stay away from seeing the innocent punished unfairly because of your lies. Because again, I will not justify the wicked. It's pretty plain, young people. I will not justify that. Again, there's nothing that you can come up with that God is going to be like, okay, yeah, you know what, that person absolutely deserved you lying on them. And having something happen to them that they potentially didn't deserve. right? People do stuff to us all the time, and maybe they deserve something or not, but it ain't for us to decide. Again, if God determines that someone has run afoul, and he'll take care of it. As we look at verse 8, and I shall take no gift, and thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise and perverteth the words of the righteous. So in this particular verse, young people, this is for the judge. This is for those who would have that responsibility. You cannot take a bribe. Because if you take the bribe, all of a sudden you can't even see the evidence that's right in front of you. You can't even hear the testimony that's coming into your ear gate, because all you can think about is, oh man, I got all this money. Well, I just got all this stuff. Or, you know what I mean? And so you're all in your mind. You've already decided the case before the case can even be brought to you, because again, you've accepted the bribe. And because you've accepted the bribe, you've now compromised your character as the judge, right? Because now everyone knows, oh, okay, well, so-and-so, you don't have to bring evidence of so-and-so. All you need to do is take a bribe. All you got to do is take coin. All you got to do is give them something. And whatever you want, you can have. Again, when in situations like that, that's when society breaks down, because again, when the disadvantaged, the poor, the ones that we listed earlier, when they are oppressed, when they are not just, or when they're not getting justice, again, it's not going to go well. Again, things will fall apart, because as I said in the beginning, you only take that for so long. People will only let you, mistreat them for so long, and then they will rise up against you, and then you got a whole nother problem on your hand. And so going back up to the justice, the poor, and the innocent, the poor were not to be denied justice merely due to their social status, as we've said repeatedly. This is the converse of the statute given in Exodus 23:3. God has a special concern. Again, young people, God has a special concern for the poor and otherwise less well off in society. Deuteronomy 15:7 and Psalms 12:5. A poor person was to have full access to justice, as did those who were prosperous. When justice is denied to the poor, those who participate in such a travesty are actually exalting themselves above God himself. They deny his authority by elevating themselves above his authority. The Israelites were to separate themselves totally from judicial unrighteousness. The courts were responsible for vindicating the innocent. Again, there's a reason why Lady Justice is blindfolded, right? Because again, she's not supposed to be able to see who's in front of her. You're just hearing the evidence as it's presented, and then you make the proper judgment. God promised that his judgment would fall upon those who falsely accuse the innocent. Those who engage in perverting justice place themselves in opposition to the righteous God himself. Deuteronomy 32:4. Injustice runs and declares only what is right. Injustice runs contrary to God's righteous character. God speaks and declares only what is right. Isaiah 45:19. He is the lawgiver and ultimate judge of all. Those involved in adjudicating disputes are not to show favor toward the wealthy by accepting bribes. When a person accepts a gift of any kind, he obligates himself to bear a false witness. He forfeits his own personal integrity. Bribes blind the eyes of the judges to the truth. Their mental vision becomes so clouded that they do not see the truth. Though they know the truth in their heart, though they know the truth in their heart, while they enjoy their worldly gain, the justice due to the innocent is denied. Deuteronomy 16:19. As we look at our final verse, justice and strangers, which covers verse 9. And thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Right? So again, God is reminding them, hey, listen, you guys And we know ultimately, young people, they would eventually, set up all of these different rules for Gentiles and foreigners and all this other stuff. But God laid it out for them. They were to not oppress those foreigners living amongst them. Because again, for 400 years, they were strangers in somebody else's home. So anytime you've been in a situation, you should have a soft spot in your heart for anybody else going through said similar situation, right? And so instead of, as we're going to see eventually the Israelites do, your job was to make sure that they were taken care of too. Your job was to make sure that, hey, if they bring an issue to court, it is judged fairly too. Now, we don't mistreat them because they don't have an inheritance. We don't mistreat them because they don't have any kin among us to stand up for them. No, again, God has laid out how you are to, one, act with each other. Don't lie on each other. Don't run with the group to make up something to get someone in trouble. And don't mistreat people because they are not like you. Again, we see that throughout today's society. Well, I don't like you because of this. Or I don't like you because you identify as that. Or I don't like you because of this. Or I don't like you because of... Listen, we're going through a political season right now. It's ridiculous to see how much divisiveness all of this has caused, right? You literally have families, husbands and wives splitting up due to political affiliations. Again, it ought not be that way. Again, we ought to be able to and I'm veering off on a tangent, but we ought to be able to at least respect each other's opinion on different matters without always resorting to name calling or, again, I don't want to be around you because you identify as this or you're with that group or you're with that group. We're Christians. It's our job to be lights. It's not our job to be, at the forefront of... Forgive me. Again, as we look at justice and sinners that covers verse 9, the word strangers refers to foreigners living in Israelite society. A stranger was never to be oppressed. Exodus 22:21 states this same prohibition. With this repetition, the Lord emphasized that foreigners were to be given proper respect and treatment. This is true whether in the court system or in normal contacts of daily living. The Israelites knew firsthand what it was to be a stranger in a foreign country, for they had spent more than 400 years, as I said earlier, as foreigners in the land of Egypt. God reminded them of this period in their past when they were without rights of any redress to justice. Again, they couldn't take an issue to court. They were slaves. Foreigners usually had no kin to protect them. The Israelites knew in their own hearts what this was like. They had to endure terrible cruelty in Egypt until God delivered them by his grace. They were to treat foreigners with justice. As we move into the real life applications of our lesson today, young people, and thank you all for riding with me. The Mosaic Law was given to Israel as a way of life. It is a written record of God's eternal law. God expects people to respect each other's rights. Again, I don't care if you don't agree with it, but you should respect people's rights. At all times in human history, God expects people to respect each other's rights at all times in human history. The moral laws of justice transcends the written Mosaic laws and are applicable today. Again, it doesn't matter that we're not under the law. You should still respect other people. Again, regardless of how you may feel, the standard is the standard, but you still can, hey, listen, do you know God loves you? Hey, I have something better for you if you ever want to talk. I can tell you about Jesus, but just browbeating them and sending them to hell when none of us have that authority to send anybody. Believers especially should be committed. Believers especially should be committed to respecting others people's rights by always dealing justly with them. We should also speak out for the rights of others in our community as the occasion arises. I can't make that any more plainer. Again, we shouldn't let other people's rights be trampled on because, again, we may not agree with them. Christians must refrain from slandering other people. If we perpetuate a lie or speak ill of another person, we have slandered him. This besmirches the character and reputation of an innocent. Again, some of you all know this firsthand, right? Someone lied on you. Someone went and told other people a bunch of mess about you, and people believed it, and then they ran and told the next person, and you had to deal with that. Again, if you've ever been on the other side of that, man, I would hope that you're not perpetuating it now or at any point, to be honest with you. How would we like to have our reputation slandered by the gossip of others? And some of you have. And some of you, unfortunately, have been the gossipers, right? Again, slander can create a roadblock for gospel witness to, slander can create a roadblock for a gospel witness to an unbeliever. Those who slander ruin their testimony. Again, I don't want to hear from you when you're over here lying on somebody else. You want to trash this person to me in one breath and then turn around and tell me about Jesus in another. Man, you can get on out of here with that. Send me somebody else that's not over here, making up stuff or lying on people. The temptation to be vindictive toward a person who considers you to be his enemy raises his ugly head when you find something that he has lost, as I said earlier, young people. And it is real easy. It's very easy. Okay, you got me. Okay, I got you. I'm going to get you back. And unfortunately, that is the attitude that a lot of people take, whether you're in the world or you're Christian. Oh, you got me? Okay, I got you. I'm going to get you back. To return, it wears its ugly head when you find something that he or she has lost. To return the lost property to him or she is to overcome evil with good. Again, you're heaping coals. Hey, listen, you thought I was just going to turn a blind eye, but I'm not. Here you go. And hey, listen, I took some of this off of him to help him move along. This is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the opportunity to bear witness for Christ. Again, especially when you're dealing with unsaved people. Man, I didn't expect you to do that. Hey, brother, sister, how you doing? How's everything going? You strike up a conversation and who knows, before you know it, hey, have you heard about Jesus? But you can't do that if they think you are a complete jerk, who will literally turn a blind eye to situations going on around you because you don't like them. Israel's law provided the protection of all its citizens, regardless of their economic status. God created us in his image, and for that reason, we should respect all people. To strike out, I want to go back to that point. Again, God created us in his image, and for that reason, we should respect all people. Again, I don't care if you don't like how they live their lives. I don't care if you don't like the color of their skin. I don't care if you don't. Listen. As Christians, we've been called to separate ourselves from the rest of the world. Let them have that mess. Let them treat people in a kind of way. Let them do all of that extra stuff. Us, hey, listen, I love you, brother. I love you, sister. I don't care what the situation is. I don't care who you were. Because again, all of us was ex-somebodies. For that reason, we should respect all people. To strike out vindictively at a person, whether legally, verbally, or physically, is striking at God. We must show proper regard we must show proper regard and care for all men, regardless of their social rank. Further, Christ died for all men. Again, he died for everybody, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your race, regardless of whatever. He died for everybody. We should have respect and compassion for all men for Christ's sake. Christians must not only desist from bearing a false witness, but also be bold and brave to bear witness, to bear witness to the truth against all. And this one is hard, young people. This one is hard. This one here is hard. But also be bold and brave to bear a witness to the truth against all evil. If a believer finds himself in a situation where he witnesses a crime, he must act justly. He must testify truthfully to what he saw. The guilty must be brought to justice, and the offender must be recompensed. Refusing to be involved contributes towards injustice and lawlessness. Listen, there have been plenty of people who have stepped up to the plate, regardless of the individual or organization that they were testifying against. They've stepped up to the plate and did the right thing. Again, that's an individual choice. But again, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. And if God be for you, who can be against you? You got God on your side. Again, that's an individual cause. But again, if you turn a blind eye, well, if you say, well, I didn't see what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to testify. I don't want to be involved. Well, guess what? When you have that attitude, someone else is going to be a victim, right? When you say, no, I don't want to. Well, I can almost assure you, someone else is also going to be a victim. And you could have been the very person to stop that. You could have been the very person to save that individual. But again, you chose to, and for whatever reason, again, I don't want to just gloss over the fact that unfortunately people have been intimidated. And unfortunately, some people have lost their lives behind doing the right thing. But again, if God be for you, who can be against you? We must remind ourselves that just because God sometimes seems far away in heaven, we can never get away with injustices, whether carried out in the law courts or in personal relationship with others. He also knows when we have acted justly. Again, justly. God knows everything. You can't hide anything from him. It's pointless. You're better off doing the right thing. Because again, you don't want for those of us that are Christians and we have all been sealed with the Holy Spirit. There's just something about it. It don't sit right in your spirit when you know. I could have been the difference in that situation. I should have did the right thing. Standing up for what is right is often very difficult, again, as I said. But it can be done by God's grace. God never allows us to be overburdened by a situation. He is there to provide the strength we need. In those times, we know that we can call on him for wisdom and strength. All of us have been newcomers. And let me tell you something, folks, young people. All of us have been newcomers to a church, school, neighborhood, or job. Sometimes it is hard. It really is. It's hard to break into social group, especially if you are like me. You are, I'm not the most outgoing when it comes to just talking and small talk, right? I operate best over here. But again, we all understand what it's like to try to, I got to fit in. At some point I need to start making friends, right? So it is hard to break into social groups. It is only normal to desire acceptance. Again, everyone wants to be accepted. I don't care who says what. Ultimately, everybody wants to be accepted by either their peers, co-workers, parents, whoever, wherever, or whatever. We all seek that acceptance, that validation, or whatever it is that says, okay, you belong with us. You in with us. You in the in crowd. Again, some of you all are in school right now, and you all know all too well that you got the cool kids, you've got the nerds, you've got the sports guys, the jocks, or whatever, however you want, and then and you've got the musicians or the artists or whoever. Again, everybody wants to be accepted by whichever group that they're trying to fit in, and even as Christians, right? When you become a Christian and you find a Bible believing church, you want to fit in. You want to be accepted by those brothers and sisters, and preferably whichever ministry God leads you to, you are accepted as a fellow believer in Christ. So again, it is normal to desire acceptance. These experiences teach us to depend on God for his encouragement through those situations. God uses these experiences in our lives so that we can be an encouragement to others. When we meet newcomers to our neighborhood, our church, or jobs, we should welcome them. Our warm reception will encourage them to become part of our group. Again, especially those of you, if you see someone, young man or young lady, and you see them always sitting by themselves, hey, go up and strike a conversation. Say, hi, how you doing? My name is so-and-so. What's your name? Where you from? Hey, blah, blah. You want to come and eat lunch with us? Those things go a long way, especially when you don't know anybody. Again, you're just really trying to feel your way out, and you're hoping that somebody will extend you that olive branch. Be the olive branch, young people. And again, school, work, wherever, it doesn't matter. If you know of someone who has just recently come into your community, or church, or whatever, and they haven't really, started to blossom or make friends, be that one that goes up and say, hey man, how you doing? Would you like to, whatever. Again, as we're closing out, I want to read this into your hearing, young people. And this comes to us from Matthew 7, verse 12. So in everything, young people, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Again, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Again, you treat others how you want to be treated. Nobody wants to be mistreated. Nobody. Nobody wants to be handled any kind of way. Again, nobody. Again, you reap what you sow. You get back what you put out. It truly is as simple as that, young people. So again, as you all are going through your week, I pray that you put these points into practical use. Stay away from that crowd that wants to run out and lie on people. Stay away from those situations that cause you to turn your back or turn a blind eye when you know that you can help out in a situation. All right. Again, we want to be obedient in everything, and everything includes how we treat people, how we respect people. Again, from various backgrounds. Again, you as Christians, you should be described by the way you treat people. You know what? So-and-so is always looking out for people. They don't even know them. They look out for strangers. That's how we should, as Christians, should be character. Listen, so-and-so is always willing to help. Oh, you ain't got to say anything because they've already introduced themselves to that individual and they've already got a date and they're going to take them and show them town, or they're going to take them and they're introducing them to different people. Again, we are a body of believers. We're brothers and sisters in the faith. We should act like it. And even to those who are not in the faith, still treat them. Because again, you don't know what God has laid on their heart. You don't know how God has dealt with them. You have been in that situation too, where you were lost and you were out and you were hearing the call, right? But maybe you hadn't accepted it until you heard someone say, hey, listen, have you heard about Jesus? You know what? The funny thing, it's been on my mind. Well, come down to church with me. Come to Bible study. Come to Sunday school. Come to prayer service. Come to a men's or women's group meeting. Come sit in a rehearsal for the praise team. Whatever. Just be around brothers and sisters and allow that to allow the community to build itself up by refreshing one another. And so, young people, and for anyone who has listened to this video, and I went on a couple of tangents, and I do apologize. But for me, I hate seeing Christians, right? I hate when they use that and they say, "Oh, look at, did you see what that Christian did? You see what they said about that person? They supposed to be a Christian." And again, I've been guilty of it myself, so don't think that I'm, but you hate seeing that. You hate turning on the news and seeing, yeah, man, these folks, they can't even protest without it turning violent. They can't even gather and gather for a cause without it turning violent. And a lot of this stuff you see, well, there's a lot of Christians in that crowd. There's a lot of Christians in that crowd. And yet you can't even tell the difference between the ones that are supposed to be Christians and the other ones. Because the Christians are doing the same thing. Being intolerant, being disrespectful to people based on any manner of things that I laid out in this lesson. Those things bother me. And again, I feel myself getting hyped up again about it. But before I do so, I want to take this opportunity for those of you who have not accepted the call, for those of you who have been called, and you're hearing the call, but I don't know. Listen, today is a good day. Again, a lot of you young people hearing my voice, you've seen in the news, we just lost a very prominent entertainer, over something trivial, something extremely petty. 28 years old. That's way too young to leave this world. You never know when your number's going to be up. I know a lot of you young people think, "Oh man, I got all this time." I hate to say it. Maybe you do, and maybe you don't. And this call, it's a simple thing. You don't have to do all of that extra stuff. You're not doing any seances and none of that other. You don't have to do none of that other crazy stuff that some of these idol and some of these false religions do. You simply confess with your mouth and believe in your heart and genuinely believe in your heart. He died, he was buried, and he was raised after 3 days, the firstborn. He's defeated death and sin for all time. Listen, we all deal with sin, but it's been defeated. Your sin has been forgiven. All you got to do is accept the call. All you got to do is accept the call and let Jesus in. Let him be your intercessor. Let him say, "I died for that." Let God seal your name in the Lamb's Book of Life and Blood. Let him send back to you the helpmate in the form of the Holy Spirit to help guide you. And if you've answered the call, plug into a Bible-believing church. Find you a man or woman of God that is faithful in preaching the word of God. Not bits and pieces, the word of God. Again, as you've heard me lay it out in this lesson, listen, God has not asked us to treat people any kind of way. So find you a Bible-believing church. Plug in with the brothers and sisters in that ministry. And watch what God does for you. And watch how he does a thing in your life. Now, again, I want to caution you. Doesn't mean that storms are going to stop. Doesn't mean that life will not those negative things won't happen. I'm not going to tell you that, because whatever God's will for your life is God's will. But at the end of the day, one thing is for sure, you're not alone. One thing is for sure, you have a hope and a place in God's family. But it doesn't happen if you don't accept. So please, 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 for those of you listening to this video, watching this video, please consider it. And please find you a Bible-believing church and plug in with the saints. Until next time, young people, I am very much looking forward to the next time that I come before you all, and I see you all again when we go over lesson 11. Until then, we'll see you all back again on the corner, JMG Corner. Until then, God bless.